and welcome back to the Traversing Entrepreneurship Podcast, a show for business owners who set out to do something different and did not stop there. This is Derek DeLomo coming to you from Traverse City, Michigan, the city that inspired the name of this show. With over 19 years of experience in the finance industry, I've heard my fair share of success as well as horror stories in business. On this podcast, I enjoy sitting down with a variety of entrepreneurs to talk about what it takes to build a successful business, including all the ups and downs that come along with doing something different and paving your own way in life. In today's episode, I'll be interviewing Chris Shihadeh, a successful entrepreneur and digital marketing expert. Chris is the CEO and founder of Skylab Digital, and he has established himself as an authority in the Medicare and insurance spaces. Join us today as Chris shares his entrepreneurial journey, personal challenges, and professional achievements. Welcome to the show, Chris. Thanks for being here.
Derek, thank you for having me.
So, Chris, can you give us and our listeners a little bit of your backstory, maybe what life was like before you started Skylab Digital and how you got there?
Absolutely. I started entrepreneurship as really a young kid. I was trying to leverage help on a car washing business when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and hiring all the neighborhood kids to go wash cars around the neighborhood and paying them less than what I was making per car, and learned the power of leverage there at a ripe young age of 8 or 9. I can't remember exactly. And that's catapulted over the course of my career of a lot of mistakes, starting multiple businesses, everything from window washing to call centers to digital marketing. I owned a tax resolution company for 5 years, and everything culminated into Skylab Digital, which is now 6 years old. We started doing primarily lead generation for the mortgage industry and the insurance industries, and here we are today. So we've built a really fun operation with an excellent team.
Yeah, and the space you're in now, kind of the insurance, and primarily the Medicare side of things. One, it's a very condensed time frame, and two, a very competitive space. How have you set yourself in Skylab Digital how did you get to be the kind of person that everybody's contracting to advertise on their behalf?
Well, there is no recipe for success other than hard work. And it's really hard. It's a lot of hours. It's failing multiple times, being able to network, growing your tool base of skills, and learning sales strategies, learning accounting, learning psychology. And there's so many different aspects, I believe, that go into being a good entrepreneur and being a successful entrepreneur. One of the things that I believe a lot of people fall short in is they just think that their passion is going to take them to the moon. And in entrepreneurship, there's so much more to it than just being really passionate about this item. There's a lot of things that you have to practice to get even, you don't need to be the best at, but you have to be okay at a minimum in order to be successful. Accounting being one of them, right? Like a lot of people, they don't take accounting seriously, and from what I've seen, that's has failed more
Recipe for
businesses than
failure.
I care to. Yeah, than 100%. It's a recipe for failure.
If you don't know what your numbers are doing, kind of hard to make decisions. You know, But I just had a meeting this morning with a new client, on the tax and accounting side, and they haven't filed taxes in 2 years. They came in with literally a piece of chart paper with their expenses on it, and I'm like, so how do you make decisions for any of this? They're like, if there's money in the bank account, we use it. I'm like, okay, how do you want to do this? They're like, well, we want to have an insight into how our business is doing, what is successful, and what we're struggling with. Like, okay, this needs to change the accounting side because that's where it all lives. That's how you make the decisions. And you having a handle, on accounting more than most, I would say, it puts you in another field right away.
100%. And that's practice, right? I mean, it's comes learning. Anybody can take a course on YouTube or, any of these other online courses and learn the basics of Excel. And you don't need to be a master in QuickBooks. But if you're not running your business on accrual accounting, how are you making decisions to know if you're making money or not? And, like it's to me, I'm like, well, how do you can't really get past a couple $100,000 a year revenue business unless you have that dialed in and you can see where to improve from a financial standpoint, where you can cut, where costs are expensive, where you can push income wise. So yeah, I'm as you can hear, I'm pretty passionate about making sure your books are in order.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm, just probably just as passionate, if not more, just because it's part of the business, right? And, but I own a tax and accounting firm, so I'm passionate about it, but it's also like people treat it as a chore instead of a tool. They think of it, I'll deal with that later. It's like, no, you need to deal with it now because all of the things that you're doing either impact or are going to impact line item, that ledger. And if you don't know how it's going to do it, what's the point in doing the work?
It's so true, and it's so fun talking to like financial people because they get it. And the reality is so many entrepreneurs just don't. They focus on, passion only. And here's like everything other than this because, oh, I hate accounting. I sucked at math in school and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, look, you could have sucked at math, but you're going to suck at business if you're spending more than you're making. That's going to be the reality.
Yeah. I mean, and, it seems so simple, right? But it's so hard for people to grasp. Like, oh, I'll make it up next month, with that passion, that drive. And it's like, no, you get into this kind of repetition of overspending, under revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just this snowball that gets so big. You're like, now you have to get out of the business because you can't afford to keep it.
Yeah, that's true, right? And
Yeah.
I call that dying by 1,000 cuts. So, the worst way to go down is dying by 1,000 cuts. And then when it's too late, you're like, oh my gosh, I've bled so much blood out that the business is over, right? And
Yeah.
when it could have been solved 6 months ago very easily, right? A couple little tweaks and it could have been fixed. But if you don't know where those are, you can't place any fixes, right? You're just kind of gunslinging there.
Yeah. And that's, I've done what, 50 some of these podcast episodes. I mean, we've already hit probably the three biggest things that like every business owner that I talk to talks about. I mean, you built an incredible team, you've got passion and drive and understand your numbers. And if you don't, if you're going to go down in the ball of flames.
100%, right?
So, speaking about your team, I mean, you said in the intro part or the backstory part, you've created, how did you put together a team that, as rock stars now, as opposed to filling a seat?
Yeah, it's came from very painful lessons, we'll put it that way. I don't know anybody that has been good at hiring out the gate. It's something that I believe is learned, and you can't replace experience in most things, but I think in hiring and finding out who are winners and being able to fire efficiently and quickly is a really tough thing to do for most people in general, because most people, I have a heart. Like, firing is probably the worst thing of the entire job of being a business owner. And it's super critical, but until you've done it a bunch of times, myself and most people end up waiting longer and longer and longer than they should. And all of a sudden it's catapulted into this massive problem. And you need to end up terminating everybody on the team, which is my experience. I had to terminate almost every single person on my entire team and rehire. And when I did, I looked at myself and I said, all right, how do I hire A players? I got some coaching. I did a lot of research. I tried to learn a lot of things. And in order to identify if an employee is an A player, B player, C player, I consider four criteria. So I asked myself, what happens when I delegate to them? What happens when I recruit? What happens when they need to do something new? And what happens when they're blocked, when they have a problem? And an A player The easiest one that I look at is the recruit question. And I say, all right, I want to hire people exactly like this. That's who I want to hire. And if I know that this person is the model of that role, then I know that they are an A player. Okay. A B player, I'm always trying to improve. So I'm like, all right, these are good things, but I want to try to get you up to the next level. All right. I want to hire somebody a little bit better. They're good enough, but they're not taking me to the moon. And then C player is I need to find somebody entirely different. And in my opinion, C players need to be off the team as quickly as possible because they will make B players become C players. And that's something that I didn't quite realize until it was too late, right? These are all hard lessons that I've learned. And, I've chatted with a few people about them, and some of them have taken a lot of this into their own hiring practices, which I think was really cool because it's been a game changer for me. When you delegate to them, what happens? When I delegate to an A player, I know it'll get done. I don't have any worries that I'm going to have to chime in and try to fix it. A B player mostly will get it done, but you'll have to help them a little bit along the way. But they'll get it done most of the time. You'll just have to know that you might have to double check your work. All right. And then a C player, you're worried it'll get done at all. You're fairly confident that it won't get done. Right. And that's a C player in my book. Again, that tier should be off the team. And the next one is what happens when they want to do something new, right? When you give them a new task. An A player will learn it. They'll
Figure it
learn it
out.
by themselves. They'll just figure it out, right? They'll do the research. You can have Harvard education on YouTube now and be able to, all the world's knowledge is at your fingertips if you want it. It just takes time and effort. And with an A player, they'll teach themselves how to do it. A B player, you'll have to guide them, but they'll be able to. But you'll have to give them a roadmap. And then a C player, they won't be. That they might try it. They'll probably get it wrong if they even try it at all. Okay. And so those are the three main things that I look at to identify A, B, and C players. And I try to always have A players, and I try to get my B players to become A players. And B players are coachable. They can get to that next level. They just need a little push. They need a little bit of guidance. They need to find a reason to want to work that hard and to want to be that A player person. And if they don't, usually they go down to a C player and end up not being on the team. And if they do, they become an A player and help grow your team in the right way.
So what do you normally see, like if you hire a B player or somebody you thought was an A player as a B player, what I'm going to call it, what percentages do you see of B players that are able to become A players versus that drift down to a C player?
I think that is on management.
Okay.
And that's on me and that's on the management team to get them up to an A player. And if they go down, so if they're a true B player and they go down to a C player, I put that onus on me for not giving them the right tools to get to an A player. Now, that also means that unfortunately, it's my mistake. It's also my company, and because you're now on a C player, it doesn't work to be on the team anymore. But that unfortunately, it's really hard to go from C to B and then B to A from in my experience. What percentage? Most of them can become an A player. A lot of it, like almost all of them can. You just have to, if they don't, they didn't get enough attention, and for whatever reason, they end up not making it.
Which is interesting, because I mean, you see, when you run a business and you have a team of people, obviously there's different personalities. You're never going to be able to recreate yourself because one, we're all different, right? We're all little snowflakes that are all different. Everybody has a little different flair, you know, but everybody wants to be independent. They want to think that they're doing things the right way. It's almost kind of like a little bit of hierarchy, to be like, okay, you want it done this way. There might be another way to do it. It may or may not be as efficient or as good as the way that you want it done, or it could be better. But I have seen those people who think they're A players, who are legitimately B players that are trying to, at least they have the drive. It almost gets in their own way, of like they get caught up in I have to try something different get noticed, if you will,
Sure.
and they fall into a pattern of like just they can't follow the stream, and it's like it makes them just oh, I don't know how to put it. It's like they can't get out of their own way. I think is the only way that I can put it. Like they're trying so hard, which is good for the A player drive side of things, but makes them become a C player because they can't get out of their own headspace.
Yeah, and that can be a challenge with, I mean, any personality type, any type of A, B, or C player. I feel like, that there's scenarios that they can't get out of their own way. I think that one of the important aspects is they really need to be able to focus on their role, and if their job description is very clear, they not always you want to stay in your own lane, but understand your role and make sure that you're doing that to the best of your ability. And I think where a lot of that happens is they try to do too many other roles that are outside of their job description, or too many other things because they're trying to get in good graces with management or leadership, and ends up not being the goal. Right now, I think that's also like, is that a management issue? Like, I'm now of the mindset of, for me, anybody that doesn't succeed, yes, they could have done their more, but it's my fault because I put them in a wrong position. I hired them thinking they were something else. So I ultimately take the responsibility and need to learn from why this person didn't succeed. And a lot of times it's I think that they're able to do this said task or job description, and then it turns out that it was over their head. And, it's hard to identify that in a 1 hour interview. A lot of times, it takes a month to figure that out. Right. So,
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, you try to always get better. But the more I think my business really changed, the more I looked in the mirror and said, everything that happens, good or bad, is because of my decision. And if I improve my decision making on every single aspect of my business, then it'll improve. But if I blame you for not succeeding, or I blame you for not doing this and you for not doing that, why aren't they doing that? Did they, that's exactly, it's me. And so the more that you can take ownership, and that's one of our core values is extreme ownership, is, and every single person on our team has to exude that. Right? If there's a problem, then they made a mistake. Every single person, hey, here's what happened. I messed this up. It cost us money. Here's what I'm doing to fix it. Every time they come with a solution, it's not just a problem. Here's the protocol that we're going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again. And I'm really sorry. All right. I'm done. Yeah. I've
I mean,
made
that's
countless
that's my
mistakes too.
requirement.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my requirement. I was like, with my staff members, it's like, okay, you haven't. So first, what's the problem? What have you tried? You know, what do you think the solution is? Like, I know what the solution is, but I'm not just going to give it to you. I need you to kind of work through the process, you know, make sure that you're thinking about it before just being like, oh, hit the Staples Easy button and go ask my boss or my manager, you know, how do you figure this out? In some cases, yeah, that works. But if you're able to actually think, come to the problem, come with what you've tried and what the possible solution is, now we're getting somewhere.
So let me ask you this. Did that come natural to you to be able to like lead them to their own responses? Okay.
I had to figure that out, right? Because I was always like, all right, if you get stuck, come to me. And they were just coming to me with problems. And I'm like, I don't want to be just a problem solver internally all the time. So I'm like, okay, how can I? And I tried a bunch of different iterations. Like, don't come to me until you've done X, Y, and Z before that. And I was like, wow, that's a little bit be a black hole, stuff they're not even thinking of. So I was like, okay, it was actually one of my consultants, kind of a team building guy per se, right? He was like, hey, how about try a little less nudging and, make them bring more to you. And that's what's work. I mean, that's what creates kind of the little bit more of the ownership side on the staff side to say, okay, he trusts me or she trusts me to do XYZ. Now I have to figure out, I don't want to come there with nothing. So what am I going to come to? And it gets them thinking about what they have to do in order to solve a problem. And in some cases, they just don't have, the understanding of whatever they're trying to do. And that's when you have to coach them. But I found it to be much more beneficial to both, owner and employee to be, okay, here, what have you tried and what do you think the possible solutions are? But no, it did not come natural. I mean, it came by trial and error.
I mean, yeah, that was the same thing, and that was another big turning point in in my team building career was when I figured that out because I was always like, here, I'll give you the answer to the problem, and that works if you got 3 employees, but then all of a sudden you have 10, 15, 20 people, and you're like, dude, all I'm doing is answering questions that you could answer yourself.
That's what
So
it was. I was spending more time answering questions than I was, either in or on the business. And I'm like, I hire people to give time back to me to go propel the business forward, right? And it's like, but now it's like, now we're going backwards. I'm like, you need to do it this way. Now I get my time back. They get their independence. They have to think about it. It works out a lot better that way.
uh,
And, when you have people that can then coach that to the next line down, it becomes even better. So it's like, okay, you're overseeing this person, they're overseeing these people. They get their time back by doing the same thing. So
100%.
it's
That's
kind
where
of a
we're at in
triage.
our business is now getting that middle tier leadership to be able to have that same that same coaching down to the next level. And I find that to be this is a new challenge for me. Every year or two has a bunch of new challenges, and having that mid-tier leadership, it's you can't really grow past, I feel like, where we're at now without that. But it presents its own new sets of challenges, and I mean, I love it, right? That's kind of why I'm in business, at least, is to problem solve. Here's a challenge that I can try to fix and improve, and
And that's where we're all at. I mean, pretty much every entrepreneur is a problem solver at heart, right? It's like we got into business to solve some type of problem that we were passionate about. Now it's just like, here's a different set of problems that one, we didn't know about when we started. Two, we don't know about it currently. We have to learn it. So it's a constant learning experience. I mean, you are in a business that is so, I mean, very competitive, also very, what do I want to call it? Price locked, not price locked, but very price conscious, if you will. And, you know, to get to where you're at, you have to have a middle management team that is also conscious of what's going on. So, I mean, because like you said, you can't grow past a certain amount without a second level before it gets to you.
yep. Yeah, and I mean, we're very KPI driven. I mean, I think one of the major benefits of our business is that you can see your KPIs a lot sooner than in some other businesses. So, I mean, we can see real-time stats of what ad cost is, and click-through rates and landing page conversion rates, and all that in real time. And we can use that data, manipulate it multiple times a day, where some businesses, it takes 3 months before you get some data back before you can really make any movement. And that's a lot more challenging to, it's a slower moving train where, we have, our trajectory is like this a lot of times versus like this, and because of that, right? And a lot of it, you have to be able to always keep an eye on things because 1 hour might be a lot different than the last hour. And, to look at things on an hour by hour basis, it's important in our business, but it's also, it's something that it's time consuming, and it's something that
Sure.
each of us have to do.
How big of a data set per se do you need to see before you start tweaking things? Like if you're looking at a click-through rate or a landing page, whatever, how many sets of data do you need before you start tweaking?
So, like from an ad level, it depends on which level. There's a lot of different levels to get to a call and ultimately a converted sale for our buyers. But like when we're testing a new creative, you'll test maybe a few $1,000s to it before you say, all right, this is not succeeding at all. Click through rate. I mean, click through rate is a very initial KPI, but that isn't, you could have a really high click through rate and be a really low converting ad on the back end of the funnel. So, we have to take in all the considerations when all said and done. But initially, we'll look and see, like, all right, is this a 4% click through rate? That's killing it right out the gate. Let's give it a little bit more test to see what happens. Is this a 0.5% click through rate? All right, probably not going to be a creative long term, and we might keep an eye on it a little bit more to make sure that, hey, maybe back end metrics are killer. Maybe it converts, the landing page converts huge and CPA is really low. It just doesn't click through as well from an ad perspective, but we're going to keep an eye on it closer at the beginning to see if any of those back end metrics will justify a lower initial KPI.
So yeah, I mean, I guess I only know enough about marketing to be a little bit dangerous, and ad spend and all that stuff. So it's like CPA, for example, what does that stand for on your side?
So a
Cost
CPA
per
is a
something.
cost per acquisition, and that is a
Okay.
very loose term that could be on a lot of different milestones, right? So you have to get some context to really know what CPA is. When I say CPA, it's a cost per policy with our buyers. So, we want to be able to hit between a 250 to $500 CPA depending on each buyer, and ultimately we have to yield, we get paid on a cost per inbound phone call. So we're trying to generate a phone call for less than what we're getting paid by our buyers. That's how our margin is. And then we also want to make sure that our buyers hit their acquisition goal targets in order to get more budget from them to increase our campaigns and ultimately make more money.
Sure. So, I mean, your primary business has always been in the Medicare space, which is, what, a 45-day window I mean,
Yeah,
for the most part.
bit longer than most people would assume. So open enrollment is technically October 15th to December 7th. So, it's 5 weeks, but we run year round. Q1 is also a really good quarter. There's a lot of ways to enroll in policies in Q1. This is our slow season for sure, but there's still opportunities. It's just harder to come by. And a lot of it is prepping for AEP, which is our big season come October. So this year we started running some other verticals. We kind of anticipated a slower Medicare slow season than is a typical summer. So we pivoted into auto insurance and life insurance, some other categories to try to increase our overall revenue and not be so reliant on Medicare because yes, obviously the seasonality it's sometimes it's not fun, but it does make it a little bit easy. Sometimes you're supposed to not work quite as hard in the summer. This summer hasn't been the case, but
I guess where I was going with that is it's got to make your cash flow kind of lumpy, right? Let's call it the bulk of your cash flow probably comes in Q4 and Q1, right? So how do
yeah.
you navigate kind of that? How do you navigate to be able to smooth it out? I mean, obviously you introduce other verticals, but I mean, what within your operations side do you do to make sure that you've got cash for the year set aside from your Q4, Q1, big inflows?
Yeah, we try to get as a pro forma for what our Q4 will look like as early as possible, like around now. And then we have a pretty good credit line. I mean, you try to get funding as much as possible to be able to get through these busy season on buyers that are paying net 30 and net 45. But yeah, we're able to secure some really good credit lines. We have some very favorable credit cards that give us the opportunity to have a big November. One of the kind of, I don't know if you could call it a pro, but beginning of October and September are usually pretty slow months. So you kind of collect all of your cash and then you just kind of store a bunch of cash ready for me to start. Combine that with a few $1 million in credit, and then usually we can get through. We have some pretty good growth opportunities with our credit lines.
Yeah, so that's it. About half the people that I interview do everything on cash. and about the other half mix cash and credit. Has to do a lot of times with people's feeling around debt. But what made you comfortable with using credit as opposed to cash?
I mean, I'm a very pro debt person. I mean, debt is leverage. You're using other people's capital and to
Yeah.
grow
Other
your
people's money.
business. Yeah, exactly, right? OPM. And I try to not have it be so much, so it eats the interest payments eat into our margin more than I'd like. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's good debt and bad debt. If you're out buying TVs and cars with your business credit line, it's not going to be a good scenario. If you're using that to grow your business and there's a turnaround, it's just a cheaper bridge loan, right? I mean, you can go get a bridge loan at 50% and we'll do the exact same thing, or you can go through traditional financing at 7, and it's interest is there, right? But do you want to grow? Are you able to turn that money over at a better rate than 7% annually? If you are, then it's a win. If you're not, then if you're only getting a 2%
Debt.
margin and you're floating it for a month and a half, it's probably not worth growing with that type of finance.
Yeah, it's so funny to hear. It's nice to hear you say that because most people, like, I've got a call tomorrow with a client who has just secured a line of credit and she wants to know how to spend it. I'm like, this is not the right conversation. I'm like, this is supposed to be for, you know, the times when, because it's medical practice, right? So there's lags, 30
Sure.
to 60 days for getting payments from insurance companies. It's like it's supposed to be able to float you through that. But just because you now have a line of credit doesn't mean you go hire another person because, that's not going to, you're not going to be able to float that for that long. You can't grow the practice fast enough to make that person busy and to make your revenue, your margins higher to then also float the line of credit plus a new employee.
100%. That's a great way. And I mean, that's like in debt, using debt to fuel growth or factoring type of thing is one thing. And I've seen a lot of people, they'll use debt to keep a failing business alive. And that is just puts you in a worse situation than having the business slowly deteriorate and close, because the business is going to close anyway. Now you owe $500,000 or whatever it is you took out on top of that, not having any income, trying to keep this thing alive because going back to your books, right? Your books weren't right. Whatever else wasn't right. So, those, I've seen that unfortunately more times than I like.
It's a hard, we always, I like to say that, us entrepreneurs we have blinders. Not everybody's able to see something that you're involved in all the time. You have to seek outside counsel to help you kind of see the forest through the trees and be like, hey, look, this probably is not, even though this is what you're focused on, it is not what you should be doing. The margins on it are so low, it doesn't result in recurring revenue. It doesn't result in XYZ. There's a million, it doesn't. But because of this one piece over here, they lock into it and think, all right, that's my widget or that's my ticket. That's what I need to do. Well, you can still do that. You just have to do this over here to make sure that this works.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I think to add on to that too, like one thing in entrepreneurship that is really difficult for me is learning how to say no to things. And that really helped me, like kind of having blinders on for whatever I'm really focused on. Because the bigger you get, there's so many opportunities. Everybody says, do this and do this. And it's really difficult to block out the noise. And your friend says you should hire 2 more people, and this guy says you should go do this. And then all of a sudden, if you do all these things, but you're not focusing on the mission, then, bad things happen more often than not. And so getting good at saying no, I think is a really undervalued skill set in the entrepreneur world. This country is really good at marketing and they're really good at sales, and everybody, everything sounds good. I mean, I get something that sounds good. I mean, and it was funny. I was on the phone yesterday with somebody and said, I have never seen a pitch deck of an investment that is not up and to the right, right? Have you
Yeah.
ever seen one?
Yeah. Well, actually, I have. There when they years ago you used to be able to buy tax credits, so it was, down and to the right because you were lowering income tax, lowering your tax liability, right?
There you
But
go.
in the net scheme of things, it was still a net positive because, hey, I bought a $5,000 tax credit for $1,000. I'm positive 4 grand, right?
Yeah, that's pretty solid. I didn't know there was that. I'm gonna have to ping you
Doesn't
after to
exist anymore.
talk
It
about
doesn't
that.
exist anymore.
That sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that still works like that is carbon credits, which are in theory going away. So like Elon Musk, for example, you know, a huge portion of Tesla's profitability is from selling unused carbon credits. So they have all these credits for, building, uh, electronic vehicles, green vehicles, whatever. You know, they get allocated a certain amount of carbon credits. If they don't use them all, they sell them to other people. I think 2023 or 2024, it was something like 43% of their net profit. Yeah.
Holy smokes. I didn't even know you could buy tax credits. I would assume the tax credit has to be set for whoever was using it. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was, once you get into big wig corporate accounting, there is a lot of things you can do, but there's also things that you shouldn't do, and that's why Enron went.
I hear that. I hear that.
It's like you see all these huge corporations, with basically zero profitability, right?
Going wrong there, right? And stock price just goes up 50% a year, and you're like, huh,
It's bananas.
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, excuse me, that you can do. It's not available to you and me. It's available to, the 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, even as my career has been going on, like, oh yeah, here's this is only available to you. You can't send this to anybody else. You have to be an accredited investor, and blah blah blah, and this and that. And you're just like, wait, what? Like, how come this isn't available to anybody on Schwab that wants to invest $1,000, right? Oh, it's too risky. I'm like, really? That's how everybody's making insane money. I got 100% ROI on that one. House doesn't seem that risky.
It's the black box effect. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, there's this special thing. It's only for you. It's another sales tactic. I mean, because it is available, you just have to know where to get it. And if you think it's special and only for you, there's a higher probability that you're going to buy it than if it's available to everybody else.
Great point. Yeah, I mean, kind of leads back into this country is the best in the world at marketing and sales. That's,
Absolutely.
it's
Like
hard
you
to
said,
say no.
everything is unicorns and rainbows.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Until it's not. That's the thing. Everything is
correct.
until it's not.
Everything's unicorns and rainbows until it's not. And something's only as worth as much as how much somebody will pay you for it. Because people are like, oh, my time is worth X, Y, Z. It's like, no, you know, if I can bill $1,000 an hour, if somebody will pay me for it, I will bill it. I don't bill $1,000 an hour because nobody's going to buy that for 1,000. It's like your ROI is zero to negative at that point. So it's like find something that you can rinse, repeat over and over for a reasonable cost. But I see it with the up and coming generations, the younger kids now. It's like, oh well, my time is worth more than that. I was like, your time is only worth what somebody's willing to pay you for. Get out of your own way.
Well, I think, a lot of people, it's hard, right? I try to put myself in my mindset 15 years ago. And, you look at all those celebrities. I remember like, oh, I want to be like these rock stars and whatnot. And now these guys all are like, they want to be like Mr. Beast or whoever, right? That has $100 million a year in YouTube channel revenue. And the reality is like, all right, there's always going to be those five people at the very top in every generation that'll be that carrot on the stick for everybody. And it's hard. I try to remember, like, was my mindset that same way? And now that I'm 37, I'm just like, oh yeah, that ship sailed 10 years ago and I forgot about it. Or is it actually different now for these Gen Zers and they look, and it's hard to like fully remember, right? Because memory is a funny thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't memory, like, oh yeah, you think you remember, and then you go see a video, you're like, oh, that's not what I thought happened.
We anchor. I mean, psychology is so weird, right? Because we anchor on all sorts of stuff. And you look at it, is it different for, Gen Zers now? Yes. You know, think back on it, like Facebook, social media, for example, did not exist while I was in college. Like, it was only after I graduated that social media came about. So it was not a thing. It's like, shoot, the iPhone didn't exist. I graduated college in 2003. It's like we had flip phones, with T9 texting, and that was the coolest thing in the world, right? And you had to buy text messages in your plan, right? It was like, it was not unlimited talk and text. It was you bought minutes, and text messages cost, a certain number per send.
Simpler times. I love
So,
those
oh my
times.
God, I look back on it now and I'm like, man, it was so much easier. Like, I feel sorry for my kids now because they're in a vicious cycle, like a 24/7 cycle of like worrying about what other people are saying about them online. Like, it's, they wake up in the morning, they're dealing with, whatever somebody so and so said about them the previous night. They go to bed dealing with whatever somebody said about them during the previous day. It's this vicious cycle, and the internet's a rough place.
So keyboard warriors, man, they say things they would never say in person, that's for sure. And, it's interesting, like the attention economy, how we don't know what effects that's going to have 15 years, right? With like getting paid for amount of eyeballs and optimizing campaigns for eyeballs. I mean, this is my industry too, right? I try to book
Correct.
ads that will get as high a click through rate as possible. I want you to stop the scroll and do what I want you to do. And, I guess time will tell how that affects society on a more macro level of like just competing for attention. Like people are going to have to make a really strong point to not let your attention be grabbed by every bright, shiny object. And I'm not sure that that'll happen, to be honest. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it affects things. But I mean, there's a lot of things are moving fast, and I don't know how much you are in the
Attention
AI
spans.
world. I mean, dude, AI is going insane. So I mean, we'll see how everything shapes out in 20, 30 years, right? Because it takes a generation or two to really see how these effects go, right? I
Mhm.
don't know if you remember in the 90s. I mean, when we were kids, dude, the food supply in the 90s was horrendous, right? Everything that was true in the 90s is not true now. And, simpler time, but I mean, we were just eating plastic butter. Like, what was the like you're literally just eating plastic, melted plastic. And it took us 20 years to realize that that wasn't good for you. So,
It's not good, apparently.
yeah, apparently not, right?
Apparently, we were told it was all fine and dandy back then,
Uh,
and then now they're like PFAS, BFAs, whatever all those things are. Now they're apparently in everything. There was just an article the other day that it was found at like 4,000 meters in the Mariana Trench, like in the water. So it's perforated everything. It's being found in fish, you know, like little 5 millimeter plastic nodules in these fish that we're ingesting now. It's not going to be good.
it's bad, right? So, I mean, who knows how this all impacts? We're already seeing cancer rates and all these things in 20 to 40-year-olds skyrocketing recently. And when does it end, right? I know we're maybe now starting to open our eyes a little bit and people are a little bit more health conscious, maybe a lot a bit more health conscious than they were 20 years ago. But what type of what type of reversal needs to get done in order to fix a lot of that damage, right? And so we'll see. I mean, then you have these new babies that maybe they have a healthier diet and people are more conscious about plastic toys and all these things, but they're in this massive attention AI economy that is going to take all their lower to mid-tier income jobs. So you're like, all
Yeah.
right, well, there's never going to be an
So
easy generation.
So as somebody who is in kind of the attention economy, per se. I mean, you're running digital ads to get people to buy a Medicare insurance policy, for example. Um, here's what I see as a complete outsider, right? Is that people's attention spans are getting smaller and smaller. First, it was, YouTube videos, right? And they were 8, 10 minutes. And then Vines, was what, 60 seconds or 90 seconds? Now they're reels, at 30 seconds. And then was it TikTok was, I think, beta testing like a 7 second snippet piece. You're like, what can you say in 7 seconds? It reminds me of what's that movie? My 8 minute ad. I'm going to come up with something better. 7 minute ads. And it's like, so how does somebody who's involved in that kind of world, how do you continually stay, I'm going to say it's ahead of the game and keep attention while also realizing that attention spans are declining?
It's a big challenge, and a lot of it is creative testing, continuous creative testing. The videos that work, a lot of them are very short B-roll clips. And so it's just, 100 clips, maybe less, but like, I mean, they're all in quarter-second increments, really, right? Like less than 1 second increments. And they just go, it ends up being a 45-second video, or a 30 to 60-second video range with a whole bunch of B-roll clips. When you build a hook, you have a hook that's pretty crazy engaging, and the hook, will let us know, uh and average view time. How long are people watching this video? Are they getting through the hook or not? Right? Because the meat is past the first 3 seconds. Are they watching that 3 second hook and then moving on, or are they moving on in less than 5 seconds? And so, you want to be able to keep an eye on those KPIs. A lot of it's creative testing. It's putting out new things. And what I've realized is whatever I think is going to work doesn't matter, because the data will be the talker, not me. And our team all knows that. Oh, cool, this is a great concept. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it stinks. And you let the market tell you what works and what doesn't work.
Best idea in the world is just that, an idea. Unless somebody's going to buy it from you or engage with it, it doesn't really matter. So,
100%.
as we start to kind of wrap things up here, we usually end the episodes by giving guests a few minutes to kind of leave a message to our listeners, whether it's, advice for aspiring entrepreneurs, something you're passionate about, or your own experiences, something you've learned. It's your time to have the floor. Give our listeners a little bit extra of what Chris and Skylab Digital have to offer.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I think overall, I have a major passion for business owners. I love talking business. I mean, it's just for an hour, I could talk for another 3 hours with you on just shooting the shit on business world. I want to see everybody succeed, and too often I see business owners missing some really important parts. And if there's anything I could hammer home with business owners that are struggling with getting to profitability or struggling with anything in their business, I think there's a few main pillars that we've talked about here, but I want to reiterate. And if you're not big enough to have a team, if it's just you or one other person, you don't have to worry about the team aspect as much. But when you do get to a point where you need a team, being able to terminate quickly is super, super important. And for me, my process, I write out a quick, short paragraph. I practice it 3 or 4 times, and then I go meet with the person, and you try to have it be as quick and painless as possible. And it's super, super important to do. When I finally got that dialed in, it was a game changer for my business. Learning how to focus, learning how to say no more things than you say yes to is super important. And, we've talked about at length, like we're the best sales and marketing country in the world. There's going to be new ideas and new products and new services and new things that somebody's going to pitch you on why it's good. Well, these are all, anything that you put your time in doing is going to take time away from what you're already doing. And, I think it's super important to learn how to say no. And then next and most important that I've talked about at the beginning is that if you don't have your books in order, stop doing business now, right? That needs to be the main the first and last thing that you focus on is making sure that your books are done. And you don't have to be making money every single month, but they have to be done correctly so you can learn from it and say, this is where I'm overspending, or I need to bump my revenue up here, or I need to do this, because having money in the bank is not the same as making money, right? That's your flow. Cash flow is different than actually making a profit. And getting your book set up on accrual accounting is the only way that you can make proper decisions. So I think with those pillars, anybody can really succeed. And I can't hammer home enough that you don't need to hire people for all these things. You can learn them on YouTube. You can practice, you can do some research and just get good enough to make it so you aren't missing the boat completely. You don't have to be an expert, right? Like an expert is the enemy of success. So just be good enough and get it done. And in my opinion, that really will catapult 60+% of the businesses that are trying to figure things out still.
Yeah, it's one of those that, you and I can preach it from the mountaintops. You have to understand your books. You have to have a good team, and you have to know what the hell you're doing. You don't have to be an expert, but just be good enough. Like everybody's like, "Oh, you're so smart," and I'm like, "No, I know a lot of things about a lot of things, but that doesn't make me an expert. It just means that I know the next spot to go looking for the next answer. I don't know everything about everything, unless you ask my wife. She says, I think I do."
Clear that.
So how can our listeners find out more about Skylab Digital and Chris Shihadeh?
Absolutely. Yeah. Go to our website, skylabdigital.com. We work in insurance lead gen. We work with big call centers around the country, insurance carriers around the country. We specialize in Medicare insurance lead gen, auto insurance lead gen, life insurance. So really anything insurance is our bread and butter. And you feel free to reach out online on our website, and we can chat a little bit more, whether it's just about business, whether it's about opportunity, whether it's about your business. I love learning about anything business related.
Perfect. All right. Well, as you know, my name is Derek Delomo. I'm the owner of both Tremonti Financial Consultants and Tremonti Tax Solutions, together referred to as Tremonti. Tremonti bridges the gap between financial advisors and accountants by serving as CFO to our clients. We specifically love to work with business owners to develop a proactive tax strategy that maximizes after-tax profits. It's our job to help you earn more, be more efficient, and pay as little in taxes as legally possible. If this idea piques your interest, please go to TremontiTax.com and click the Schedule Now button to book a 15-minute chat with me. Whether we end up working together or not, I'd love to hear from you. With all that said, Chris, it was really good talking to you today. Thanks for being here.
I had a lot of fun. Thank you, Derek.
For those of you listening, if you enjoyed today's episode and had a few helpful takeaways, we'd love for you to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and share this episode with other business-minded friends. This has been another episode of the Traversing Entrepreneurship Podcast. We had fun today, and we hope you did too. Thanks again, Chris, for being here, and thank you for tuning in and listening. Peace.
This podcast is presented by Tremonti Financial Consultants, LLC. The firm is registered as an investment advisor and only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the podcast and are subject to change. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Content should not be viewed as an offer to buy or sell any of the securities mentioned or as legal or tax advice. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Different types of investments involve higher and lower levels of risk. There is no guarantee that a specific investment or strategy will be suitable or profitable for an investor's portfolio. There are no assurances that a portfolio will match or exceed any particular benchmark. All investment strategies can result in profit or loss.